it. Well, it's my son's fish, but
Okay.
that's okay.
I'm looking at the date here, February 2nd, so it's been 2 weeks. Two
Mhm.
weeks out. A little bit 2 weeks. Obviously, your story got publicized. The ASPCA came in and has your animals. What do you want to tell the public about the story that has been shared publicly from the police?
Well, I think from my perspective, a lot of people have been falling on hard times right now, and that's exactly what happened to us. And it's kind of unfair that when the police officer showed up and he said he was trying to help and I was nice to him, that he said I maliciously, I think the wording was, I'm maliciously and willingly and maliciously was neglecting my animals.
And you don't agree with that?
No.
But from what we know from the police report, they found animals that were in very poor condition. They report that there was urine, animal waste inside where your son was living. Would you acknowledge that that is what they found?
That is what they found.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would acknowledge that because my animals are used to having a lot of freedom, and I was getting attacked for the fact that they were outside barking and getting loose. A lot of my animals are capable of going over 6-foot fences like you wouldn't believe. And so, yeah, I was having to keep them inside more because if I let them out, then I was getting in trouble for that.
I know that you love dogs. You've told me that you spent your life trying to work with dogs, but at the same time, there are people out there that are going to say, this is not a way for animals to be treated humanely. They would take issue with the way that the animals were living here. Is there a way, can you square with that at all, knowing that you're now charged with animal cruelty? And I know there was a horse here that passed away.
I've worked in animal rescue all my life. I've seen way worse. Did I like what was going on? No, not at all. I was one person. I was supporting a handful of people, and I could only do so much. It was not this bad, ever.
Do you feel like maybe looking back, Lindsey, that you were in over your head to have, I know they've listed it as 41 dogs, and you've told me half of those were puppies, but were you just overwhelmed and maybe this was just inevitable because obviously the neighbors had complained?
Yeah, I was in over my head, and also my partner was deployed, and so I was focused on helping him as well, and so my attention was divided between all of the animals. My mother lost her job after 30-something years. So I was supporting my mom, my son, my partner, and all of the critters.
I think today is the 16th.
Mm-hmm.
So next Wednesday you have a court date.
The 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
What are you expecting going into that? How do you feel about, are you going to try to fight it, or do you acknowledge some of these charges?
I mean, the thing is that I want my critters back. Were they living in the most fabulous conditions? No. They really weren't. I'm not fighting that. Because I didn't like it either. But it doesn't mean that I won't want to get them back. It wasn't malicious, let's put it that way.
They have charged you with, they have a charge against you involving your minor son, who the sheriff's department charges that was living in these conditions inside the home. I know you've told me he's safe with your former partner, but would you acknowledge what they were stating in the charges was not the best place for your son?
Grew up on a farm. He's used to, and this is gonna sound terrible, but I don't know if you have kids or not, but yeah, he's used to running around half naked and playing with horses and dogs, and that's what he's used to. According to the doctor that's known him his entire life, no, there was nothing wrong with him. It wasn't dangerous for him.
Do you feel at all that the law enforcement coupled with the ASPCA were using this case as a way to
exploit me?
Or not exploit you, because there are charges against
or make
you,
an
but to use
example.
You as an example?
Yep.
You
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and I did check with a handful of people, and I've called all of my vets and all of everything, and it sounded like they. When I asked them for help back a couple of months ago, they wouldn't help. But yet they got an influx of money, and then they turned around and used that against me.
Oh, who are you talking about?
Well, I have pictures of the ASPCA, and so they brought in people from, a whole bunch of different states and things like that.
To your facility here?
Yeah.
To your
yeah.
Here. And you feel that it was a form of them trying to get publicity using this case?
Oh, yeah.
What would be your message?
I don't just feel that it was.
You don't. So when people see this story, though, but it doesn't negate the fact that there was evidence here that the animals were in distress, that there were issues with the way that you were caring for these animals.
I agree with that, and like I said, I was having a hard time trying to keep up with everything.
Is there any message that you'd want to tell your neighbors? Because from what we understand from law enforcement, there were constant complaints about the dogs. Do you have a responsibility when you have animals to keep them under your control?
The neighbors that complained about me and complained about my kid and complained about the animals are not friends of mine. They know nothing about us.
But if the animals that you had, your dogs, were crossing into their property, they have a right to have live peacefully on their property and not have animals from your farm come over to their place, right?
And that's correct, but the thing is that one of the things I was charged with is animals at large and harassing livestock. And by the way, my animals have never even killed any livestock around here, or not even mine. We have a mountain lion that comes off of the hill. We have hawks and all kinds of stuff. I've had my animals killed too, but my dogs didn't do any of it. They never have.
I know you want the dogs back. There sounds like a pretty good chance that you might not get these dogs back, these puppies back, based on the criminal charges. If that was to happen, Lindsey, going forward, would this experience change the way that you handle dogs or the amount of dogs that you have?
No.
No.
I mean, I've worked with thousands of dogs, animals. No, it's not going to.
To people out there that saw the pictures of the dogs being taken, the kennels that were brought in, the pictures that were shown of, they have shared with us that when they would get down to the skin of the doodles, because you did breed doodles, right? Mm-hmm. That you could see that they were in distress, that they weren't being cared for.
They were dirty.
What would be your response to that?
They were dirty. I mean, they're dogs. Sorry,
That's all right.
well, I have a different tone for my partner, and so that's who was just messaging me. I didn't need to be
You know that
distracted.
the case was characterized as a person that was hoarding dogs.
Correct.
Does that square with you at all? I mean, these were a lot of dogs. You've acknowledged you were overwhelmed. Is there anything part of you that wanted that had these dogs that maybe you couldn't keep up with? But is there something that was comforting to you to have all these animals, even though you couldn't keep up with them?
Okay, I used to live with hundreds of dogs. This particular situation was not set up correctly. If I had had a better setup, it would have been perfectly fine. I've lived with over 180 dogs and over 300 and we had 376 dogs at another place too. So I've lived with hundreds of horses and all that kind of stuff. This particular area, it's difficult to set everything up. And they started to tell me here that I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that, I couldn't let my animals out, I couldn't let them bark, I couldn't let them do all of this kind of stuff. And so, yeah, we were claustrophobic, I think, is what was going on.
And would you explain to us what happened with the horse? Because I believe that's the charge.
Athena.
Animal starvation. Is that related to the horse?
Yeah, so they're talking about Athena, is who they were talking about. And so the hay that I was getting here didn't have a good enough protein content there for a long time. And I ended up getting better hay, but by the time that I was able to get better hay and better protein for her, she started going downhill.
But they're charging animal starvation. So were you feeding her? What?
Yeah, I was feeding her.
But that would contradict with the charge. So was she severely underweight when they found?
No, she wasn't severely underweight. So, and she would have been okay. My friend actually came and I donated the hay and the grain and everything that I got. You do have to understand that, especially as you go into the wintertime, it's really easy for horses to colic. I don't know if you know anything about horses.
I do.
Okay. So yeah, this time of year, it's possible for them to colic. And so when, temperatures are fluctuating and all of that kind of stuff, that's what you have to go through. So no, I didn't starve her on purpose.
When did she pass away?
Just recently.
In the last, right before the charges?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How are you feeling in these 2 weeks? Have you been able to wrap your head around what's going on? Where are you right now in your head with this? And what would you want the public to know?
That's a good question. It's still overwhelming as far as everything is going. It's not breaking me at all. I'm not that kind of person. So, I've had to bury horses, lose my kid, and try to pull out of all of this.
We're not going to mention your son's name, but just briefly, is
I
he being cared by? He is in another place now. You've placed him with someone else. Your son.
So right now, I am going into a custody battle with my ex-husband over that. He's fighting me. He said he was going to support me with a lawyer and then turned around and yelled at me the other day and told me I shouldn't call him.
It appears he might be worried about your son with him.
has always gone after me for stuff. There was a domestic violence case originally between the two of us.
And then the one other thing that just popped into my mind was the sheriff's department had shared with us that I guess several months back you had a stop for an alleged DUI, and they found dogs in the car, a lot of dogs.
Oh, that was last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had actually a majority of those dogs that they took were in the car, along with the tortoise. That was in Kansas. I was living and working in Kansas at the time with a bunch of critters.
Thank you for talking with us.
So, yeah, no problem.
And maybe we'll just walk around a little bit and you can kind of show us where the animals were. And is this where the horse was?
Yeah, well, so...
I'm going to just get a picture of you right here. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Do you have any photos of Athena when she was alive?
Oh, yeah, I have tons of photos.
Do you have maybe just one and maybe a few of the dogs?